everyone, and welcome back to the Take Your Mark podcast. I'm your host, Emme.
And I'm Ruchi.
And we are back to our normal setup this week. Big thank you to Kyle for being our guest episode, but this week it's just the girlies.
We've kicked him out.
Yeah. We tried podcasting with a man.
Didn't work. Never again.
Well, we've
again.
got some plans in the future. Maybe.
Just wait and see.
Yeah, you have to stay tuned. So it's been 2 weeks since we recorded.
Honestly, it might have been longer.
Were those words? Has it been 2 weeks? Yeah, there we go.
Okay. I was going to say, I think it's been longer.
I don't know time. So genuinely, this week on Wednesday, I thought it was Thursday, and that continued all the way through Friday, where I was convinced it was Saturday. Like, I've been a mess. I think I'm back on track now, but...
Today is Sunday.
Thank you.
You're welcome. To be fair, though, I thought Thursday was Friday, too. Like, I got to work on Thursday, and I was like, why isn't it Friday? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It just felt like a Friday.
Well, I think the part of the issue for me this week, I didn't have therapy on Friday, which is usually, like, a marker of my week for me. And so I was like...
Your routine got broken.
Exactly. Well, I went and bought glasses this week. They haven't arrived yet, but your girl can't see. So I went and took care of that finally. But yeah, that like threw off my whole routine because I was convinced that it was Saturday. And then I got back to campus and I was like, why are there people in class right now? Like, what?
Yeah. What's happening? Yeah.
But, you know.
So it's been a bit. So how's your week been? You're about to graduate. How does it feel?
I went and bought my cap and gown this week, guys. Well, I bought it a little bit, but I picked it up this week.
Okay.
Feels real. Not loving it. You know, I got my graduation dress. I got some fashion tape because some parts of it just like fit a little odd, you know, but it's going to be exciting.
You need to show me which one you picked after.
Oh, yeah. I don't actually know if I had looked at this one yet when we were looking at options.
Oh.
So I don't know if you've seen this one at all. But yeah,
Okay.
I will show you after this.
Okay.
It makes me feel like a princess. It's very fun.
Yay.
But yeah, I picked up my cap and gown, like RSVP'd for all of the events. I'm trying to coordinate. I have 4 events in one day. So I'm trying to coordinate like
Events? What are you talking about?
Well, so there's major specific like ceremony
Oh,
reception
right.
kind of
Okay,
thing,
okay. Yeah,
department ceremony,
Uh-huh.
a like distinguished recognition something for like my GPA, and then the school one.
Okay. I see.
And they put them all on Friday. So
All
from
right.
like 10 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. I've got stuff, and I have to figure out when I'm going to feed my family in the middle of that because like yeah.
It sounds like a blast.
There's a lot more logistics to it than I was expecting.
Yeah.
Literally
I'm
right-
honestly glad mine was so simple.
Literally right before we started recording, I was trying to make a reservation for dinner that night, and I'm realizing I should have done that like weeks ago. But
Yeah, you're late to the game.
it's fine. It'll all work out, and it's going to be a great couple of days. And I won't cry. I will, but it's fine.
It's a rite of passage, you know.
Yeah. So yeah, that's like the actual big life event. The like small life event that feels big to me right now is I'm back on the Apple Watch grind.
She's back.
Yeah,
She's back in the club.
This is my mom's old watch that she actually gave me a while ago, and I just set it up literally yesterday. I figured with running more, you know, I can start tracking my workouts again. I'm on Strava, so I can start, you know, posting my workouts on there and stuff too.
Little fitness influencer moment.
No, I'd rather be. Okay. My goal is to be a Duolingo influencer. I've got like 20 followers on there. I only have like 6 followers on Strava, so you know that's okay.
We need more. Speaking of followers, we need more followers on the podcast. So follow us at Take Your Mark Pod on Instagram.
Yeah,
Please follow us. Please.
we're
Please.
begging.
We need followers.
But yeah, that's been my 2-3 weeks, we have no idea.
Yeah.
How have you been?
I've been good. It's honestly been the same old routine, work, swim. I will say though, this past week I got to swim 4 days a week.
Woo-hoo.
4 days a week. I swam 4 days last week. So I made it to morning practice one of the days, which is, I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And hit pretty good yardage at the end. But, oh my God, Friday, I show up to the pool. It's long course.
I saw that.
It's long course. I was like, oh no. And we were swimming long course. So I swam long course for like the first time in 4 years. It was crazy. It was actually crazy. And it sucked. It was terrible.
I actually like meant to text you and I totally forgot because in the like club swim group me, I saw someone send a text being like, hey, if you're coming to practice tonight, the pool's in long course. Mm-hmm. And I like almost texted you, not even thinking about you going to practice, but just being like, I'm so glad I don't go to practice anymore. And then I saw that you posted that and I was like,
yeah.
Oh, whoops.
Yeah, because the like local swim club, they switched to long course because now it's long course season.
Yeah.
So I think for the foreseeable future, the evenings are going to be long course because they're practicing long course.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, so I'm going to be like, my endurance is going to be crazy by the end of this month, I think, with long course practicing. I think mornings will be still short course, but I think evenings will be long course.
Motivation to go to morning practice.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. No, but I'm still going to go to like evening practices, but I'm just distance free and long course is just terrible. It's so bad. Sprinting is also really, really bad. Because
it's just
the
bad.
pool is just never ending. Yeah, the pool just doesn't end. You're done. You're like in the middle, especially backstroke. I felt this. Like still in the middle of the pool, and I'm like, where are the flags? Where are they?
No, last time I swam, so I went to like one practice last year that was long course, I think, but they hadn't set the flags up right because there was people using the diving boards at one point, and then they hadn't moved the flags back.
Yeah,
I smacked my head on the wall for the first time since I was like 8 years old. Because I was doing backstroke, I'm like, I don't know where the wall is.
There's no flags,
I just kept going. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I got out, I think, after like 1,000 because I was dead. Okay. I think we talked at the very beginning of doing this, which honestly feels like so long ago now. But we said we were going to have a recurring segment about news in the world of athletics. And this is the first time we've actually kept track of the news.
This is great news.
They are adding 50s to the Olympics in 2028 for swim. So I've seen some people be like, oh my God, didn't they already have 50s? No, they only had 50 free. And they're adding all of the other ones. They're going to be so fast. I don't actually think they're going to be like the most fun events to watch because they're going to be gone over so fast.
It's like, you know how they say the splash and dash?
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's going to be like, it's going to be under like around 20 seconds. Like the race is just going to be like, that's it. I hope that crisp snap that I just did got caught on the mic, but
I'm sure it did.
Anyway.
But I'm so excited.
I'm so happy.
50
I think
fly.
We only care about 50 fly.
They're going to be underwater for like half of the event, but it's going to be so good.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I will say though, I have seen controversial opinions about adding the 50s. Like I thought it was a good thing. Like I genuinely was like, I'm excited to see people race. 50s are fun. 50s are great.
Exactly.
And I think like 50s are honestly the reason a lot of people like who actually do the sport love to swim. Like it makes you feel like a kid. Yeah. Like it's like it brings you back to your like childhood self who used to do 25s and 50s, you know? And so like I don't know, I'm very excited about the 50s being added, but I think I have seen other side opinions like controversial, that it's controversial. Like I saw Michael Phelps wasn't as pleased with seeing 50s as like I was, or a bunch of other like Kyle Sockwell, I saw his post too. He was like really happy, and I was like, "This is awesome," but some people don't like it.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I'm not really tracking a lot of the politics of it. Politics, you know. I'm just excited to see people go fast, you know.
Fair enough.
And like, there's such. I think they make the sport more, not that the longer events can't be exciting, because sometimes you have really great races in those, but in terms of like non-swimmers watching the Olympics, the 50s are way more like accessible events to watch. You know, you watch them for like 30 seconds, they go across the pool, there's those super tight finishes that you get to see, and like, and it also just makes the sport feel more, you know, someone watching the Olympics who's not a swimmer isn't going to be like, oh my God, I want to grow up and race the 400 IM one day, because that just feels hard, you know? But like, if you're a kid, it's like, yeah, I want to get in and go really fast. I don't know. I think it's going to be, I think it'll be fun.
What should we call the recurring segment? We could just have swim news with Emme and Ruchi.
Is it always going to be swim though, or did we want to have like sport news?
Snooze.
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 Are we going to do snooze on this episode?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll just keep in
this
one
is
section.
This is the first episode of Snooze.
Okay.
Sports news.
Yeah. We'll just keep in part of this, of us explaining it.
Yeah.
Or editing. Ruchi can pop in and be like, okay, so here's the thing.
Snooze. No, but sports news flows with the song. So we have to, we would have to do like
sports news with Emme and Ruchi, the snooze.
I like that. I like that. Oh my God, that's it. That's it. Okay, we got to do it together.
The weekly snooze.
Okay, ready?
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Sports news with Emme and Ruchi. The snooze. Moving on to the topic of today's episode, we are talking burnout and lack of motivation.
A little bit of a downer, but you know, it's important to talk about because it happens.
Look, regression to the mean, right? You go down, but then there's always that upward trend. There's always that you know, you go down, then you come back up. And we'll be talking about that up next episode.
In our next episode, yeah.
It's a little sneak peek. So I'm sure, you know, we've been doing swimming for so long. I'm sure at some point you've dealt with burnout or like even just like a lack of motivation.
Yeah.
So if you can remember, like, when did you deal with it? What was the context? How was it like for you?
The first time I really dealt with, and honestly, the only time I would say I was really burnt out was I think it was like early teens. And it was at a point where I think I had still been going, like attempting to go to morning practice, but also school was getting harder. So like I was just really tired. And I had moved up to like a more competitive group in my club team. This was over the winter. So this was just club team. It wasn't summer team or high school.
Got you.
Because I think I was still in middle school at this point. But I had moved up to a more competitive group, but I just wasn't being more competitive.
Okay.
I think this was around the time when I was like throwing up, maybe.
Oh, gotcha.
So that was kind of why I think I was like getting better from that. But in doing that, I'd taken a step back from like being competitive, and my coach didn't like that. And so I felt like it was kind of hard to like enjoy going to practice because I just wasn't getting. Long term, that coach, like, he did like me, and like we would talk at meets in the future and stuff after I stopped swimming with him, but like I just wasn't getting the same amount of feedback from him or like support, and it was just, and I didn't have a ton of friends at practice, and so it was just really hard to like, I just didn't want to go to swim. And not that like it wasn't that I didn't like swimming, I just didn't want to go to practice.
Okay.
And so I feel like it's hard to differentiate, and we'll get into this, differentiating between lack of motivation and burnout. But that was like, I really felt like I had like a mental block to going to practice. It wasn't just like, oh, I could go, but I don't want to. It was like, it was a much more visceral, like I don't want to go.
Okay. Yeah.
So I feel like that was really the only time and then I eventually kind of got back into it. I think I did stop going to club for like 3 months. And one of my coaches ended up emailing and be like, hey, we haven't seen you for a while. Like, you good, dude? A little more professionally than that, but to that end. And then it came to summer swim, and I always just enjoyed summer swim more. So that kind of like got me back into it. And then I switched club groups. It was, it worked out in the end. But I had like a solid 3 months where I was just like I didn't want to swim. And then I think the only other time I've kind of dealt with it would be then in college. And that I would say was more, it wasn't a burnout from swim specifically. It was a more general, life is hard, I'm tired, swim feels like too much.
Right, yeah.
And it was hard to get the motivation to go to practice. So I guess that's kind of the difference, is that when I was younger, it was very much like it was a swim specific thing where I was like, I don't want to go to swim. Yeah. Whereas in college, it was more so just like, I mean, I could go to practice, but like, ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do know. I will say, I do have a follow-up question for you.
Yeah.
So you said when you were younger, you still went to practice, but you didn't want to, right? What was kind of the motivating factor for you then, if like when you don't want to go to practice, but you did go, you know what I mean? Like, what was that motivating factor for you in that case versus like, I guess, because it's different when you're younger, what motivates you versus what motivates you now, right? So like, what was the motivating factor then versus, I guess, now? Now
I just care a lot more about like taking care of myself, and I know that swim helps with that. And I know that like I feel better after I work out. And so I guess that's kind of, sometimes it's hard to remember that, like you're saying, where it's like life just gets to be a lot sometimes, and you're tired, and like it takes time to go to practice, and I have other stuff to do. So I think sometimes it's hard to like remember that, yeah, but taking the time to do that is a net positive for you, but I would say that's kind of more where my motivation comes from now.
Yeah.
How about you? Have you dealt with burnout in similar ways, different ways?
I would say I definitely have. I think some people are lying if they say that they've gone, 15 years in a sport and have never experienced burnout ever.
Yeah.
I don't think that is even like possible. I think, I mean, there almost always is a time where you've experienced some form of burnout or even just lack of motivation. So yeah, I definitely did experience it. I can't really think of like a specific instance really. Just like, I feel like, especially with my like really intense routine back in high school, I was definitely very burnt out all the time. But like there was, and that's why I was asking about your motivating factor, because there was still like enough motivation in me to keep going, even though I was burnt out, if that makes sense. Because like there was obviously, going to meets because I wanted to go. I wanted to compete. It was fun, And then, but then on top of that, the health aspect of like staying healthy, staying on top of it. And I wanted to kind of be in the routine too, because it also helped me mentally, because it was really good with like getting rid of anxiety or stress, like I said, swimmer calm, like you walk into the pool facility and all the stuff that you dealt with before during the day left at the door. Like you're not thinking about that when you're in the pool. So for me, that was like keeping up with that was really important. And I think even though I was burnt out, that motivation still was more than the burnout. So I still went, you know what I mean? But then I hit college and there was a different level of mental because back then it was physical burnout, but I still had the mental motivation. In college, it was mental burnout. I had the physical motivation, didn't have the mental motivation. Yeah. But the thing is, the mental motivation is what actually motivates you to go. Physically, I can say, I'm ready to swim. I'm ready to do this. But if I can't get myself to the pool, or if I can't get myself in the water, which is all mental, which is all mental, then I'm not going to be able to swim anyway. So for me, I hit, like you said, a mental block of like, I'm mentally so burnt out that I can't swim. It was the same thing of, school took up a lot of time, a lot of effort, and I didn't really have any leftover effort or time to really put into physical activity, let alone swim in general. Because on top of it too, I think swimming just takes longer. Like when you go to the gym, you can hit a 45-minute, session on the treadmill, and it's quick. You get it done. You burn the same amount of calories. With swim, it's like a whole ordeal because you have to, first of all, go to the pool. And like in our case, the pool was farther. Go to the pool, then, change into your suit, then get in the pool, then do your set, then change out of your suit, go home, and usually you feel gross after swim. So you will 100%, usually in the locker room itself, you'll shower or whatever, So I feel like with swim, there was always it always just took more time.
Yeah.
So it was almost like when I got to college, I did do more of a transition to the gym when I could. But like I said, the burnout really prevented me from doing anything. So it was genuinely like I would just study and sleep and eat. That was kind of it. What, in your perspective, when do you say something is burnout versus something is just, oh, this is just a little hump I'm getting over, I'm just a little demotivated right now?
I think, yeah, kind of like I said, where it depends if I call it burnout if the reason I don't want to go is specifically related to that thing, kind of deal, where with swim, again, I felt like I was kind of it felt like I was showing up and not getting any return on it, I guess, for a bit, where
Gotcha.
I mean, I guess, I was getting a good workout, but even at that point, I was 13, so I cared about that a little bit, but it wasn't quite as
fulfilling.
Yeah, I didn't care as much about getting just a good workout at that point. It was I want to get feedback from coaches. I want that. I wasn't getting any external validation at that point. So it was hard to stay motivated to keep going, especially there was one time I showed up to practice and we were doing breaststroke that day and I was leading my lane because I actually understood the drill that we were doing. And then the coach came over and told some other kid hey, you should be in front of her, and moved me back. And I was I was doing fine at first. It was just kind of, I just didn't feel like I was getting anything out of it, which I think it probably started as a little bit of a lack of motivation. But then it just kind of built on itself. And I was just I just don't want to go.
Yeah.
And I think if I was kind of more in your situation in high school where it was hey, you have to show up if you want to compete. You have maybe I could have kind of pushed through that.
Yeah.
But also because my mom was not someone to she always asked if I wanted to go, but she wasn't someone to force me to go to practice. She kind of was okay, yeah, you can take a little bit of a break if that is going to kind of, long term make you want to continue in the sport. I'd rather you kind of take a break now when you're not enjoying it. Whereas the lack of motivation for me more comes from it's not a specific, I don't want to do this sport. It's it's just kind of not caring as much, honestly, or not wanting to do it enough that I can kind of overcome doing other things or not doing anything. Like you said, within college, it's okay, I have schoolwork. I have to, I have to figure out what I'm eating every day. I can't just come home and someone else has made dinner.
Right.
And practice is at 9 p.m. At that point,
terrible.
I don't want to go. I could. It's not that I don't want to go swim, but I don't want to go enough that I'm going to take the 2 hours to do it. 'Cause especially, if it's at 9 p.m., okay, you have to leave at 8:30 to get up there.
Right.
Swim from 9 to technically 10:30, but I'd usually get out around 10. But even then, I have to get home then, and then I usually need some food. I need to shower. It's going to be 11 before I can sit down to do anything else again. So for an hour workout, that becomes a 2.5 hour ordeal. And then I think also kind of once you get out of it a little bit, once you lose that routine, we've talked about this kind of off and on before, but it's hard to get back into that when you kind of know, like I want to go swim, but I know it's not going to feel good. Like, I know this workout's going to be rough, and like, you know, I can know that I have to get past that to get back to a point where it does feel good.
Yeah.
Or I could just get in bed.
Just sleep.
Yeah.
Eat, study.
Yeah. So I think that's the difference for me, is like whether it's directly related to the sport or just kind of a general life thing. Because with burnout, it wasn't like I wanted to not like swimming anymore, but it just wasn't like enjoyable for me for a little bit. Yeah. And I didn't have anything external forcing me to go.
Mm-hmm. And I think on top of it too, like to get to the pool itself is a workout.
Especially here, yeah.
So that's why it was almost like there was like that added thing of like, oh, I have to, you know, there's this hike to get to the pool, and then like then I have to swim, you know, like I have to hike there and then swim. It's like, all right, you know, whereas now I drive to the pool. So like that whole element of pre-workout isn't there. There's not a pre-workout workout. Yeah. So it's like, okay, I just get there and I swim. I do my thing and I leave. It was something I just was like, I don't want to do that. And yeah, it just took up so much time. Yeah. It just takes up a lot of time.
Well, especially in the winter, like you have to bundle up, but then your workout to get up there, you get super sweaty, and then it's just like, it was just a mess. Right. And then you have to walk home and your hair is all wet, and then it freezes. Like, there's just a lot of factors, and some of that, yeah, it's making excuses. Yeah. But like when you are already tired, like, yeah, you're looking for those excuses because you kind of, not that you want to take a break, but like you're looking for reasons to not go so that you can
sleep or do anything else. Yeah.
How would you kind of differentiate between burnout and lack of motivation? Or are they kind of the same thing for you in some ways?
So I honestly really agree with what you said, where you said like a lack of motivation can turn into burnout because like you can be one day, right? Like, okay, it's a Thursday, I got practice. Don't really want to go, right? But then you can still go on Friday, and that's like lack of motivation. But then if you hit a point where you every day consistently say, I don't really want to go. I don't really want to go again. Like, I just don't want to go. You know, like when it becomes, I feel like something that's more long, something that's not just like a day or 2 days or even 3 days, something that's like every week rolls around and you're just like, I have no energy, you know, to go. I think that's when you know you've hit burnout. Because I think to me, burnout is more of a long-term thing rather than like a quick, 2 days, I don't feel like going.
Yeah, I would agree.
So like, and the thing is too, and it's important to differentiate physical versus mental, because those two things are different too, of like, because you can hit physical burnout where your body is just tired. But then mental burnout is a whole different thing. And I feel like it's a whole different beast on its own, because it's like mental burnout genuinely is what prohibits you from doing things. Yeah. Because if you hit a physical block, usually you can overcome it. I'd say honestly like 99% of the time, as long as you're mentally like, you have that mental motivation to go. Yeah. But I think with mental burnout, you're not going. It's like a immediate just, you're done, you know? And so it's definitely a bigger hump to have to overcome is mental burnout. So I faced a lot of, I would say, physical burnout because my body was always tired. I was sore. Like my shoulders were tight all the time. Like basically I needed a massage all the time. I needed to stretch. Like I needed to do yoga. I was just very much like all my muscles were tight and I was just very physically tired. But the thing is, that didn't stop me. The second I got mental burnout, it was over. Like I was fully stopped.
How do you know kind of the difference of that? Or do you know the difference when it is one of those things where it's like, okay, it's one day, it's been a hard week, I'm just going to take kind of a rest day, versus when it is that like low motivation kind of slippery slope to falling off of a routine? Like, can you tell the difference between those, and how do you know if you can?
That's a good question. I would say, like, for low motivation, usually I automatically assume it's low motivation off the bat. And the only time I really think, okay, it's become burnout is, like I said, when it's a long-term kind of thing. Like, if Monday rolls around and I'm like, oh, you know, like, I'm tired from, I don't know, something I did over the weekend, I'm going to take Monday off. So I take Monday off. Tuesday rolls around and, you know, I go, take Tuesday off. And then I start looking for excuses like, oh, I'm tired from this, or, oh, I did this, so that's why I can't go to practice, or I have this to do, so I can't go to practice. That's, I think, when you start hunting for excuses to not go, I think that's when you've hit some sort of slump or like burnout, something like that.
Yeah.
Because you can have low motivation and you can just say, I want to take a break today and come back to it tomorrow. Right. But then when you start going, you know, I didn't sleep enough, or I don't know. Actually, I use that excuse, so I don't think that counts.
Sleep is important.
Sleep is important, especially if you're commuting to work and you're driving. You want to be awake during your drive. So yes, sleep is important. That's a valid excuse. If you're only getting 3 hours, if you go to practice, skip practice, get the 6 hours. You're good.
Yeah.
But like if you start looking for other excuses, like, oh, you know, I don't know, some stupid excuses that like aren't to me valid. That's when I kind of know, okay, I'm hitting a point where I'm getting tired of the sport or something. Like there's some sort of like burnout
underlying cause.
Yeah. What do you think? What would you say? Similar or something different?
I would agree that like sometimes you can't always tell that first day when you're like not feeling it. Sometimes you can't always tell because like you said, sometimes you just have a lot going on, or you did a really tough workout and you're tired from it. And like, sometimes it is valid to just take a day, and that's important. But I think I have trouble like trusting myself to not think of it as just like, oh, this is just the first step of like making excuses and stuff. But then in some ways, like that's almost worse, because then when I take that first day, it almost tricks me into thinking, well, I've already lost the routine, you know? So I have trouble kind of not going down that route of just assuming, well, since I stopped for one day, that means like that all or nothing, black or white thinking. I'm still kind of working on overcoming that and being like, okay, you're going to take one day off, but tomorrow you have this plan. You're going to go do that. And I think I've gotten better at that, especially in, you know, being in college and having to kind of make your own schedule and stuff. I think I have found it very easy to overcommit and be like, I'm going to run every day. And then as soon as I miss a day, I think, well, that's it.
It's over. Yeah.
And it's been a bit of a learning curve to be like, okay, let's not say you're going to run 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Let's say maybe 3. And that way that's much more sustainable. So that way, if I do need to take a day off, it's easier to tell that it's kind of like, you know, I guess it's easier to kind of investigate the causes of that and be like, okay, that's valid.
Yeah.
Or no, you're being lazy. Just go out there and do it and you'll feel better after.
All right. We got a doozy of a question. So how would you recommend to other people, but also like how have you dealt with times of low motivation, and kind of like not only how did you push through it, but also we talked about, you know, burnout versus low motivation, but also when to know you've taken it when to know if you're taking it too far versus like you should be pushing yourself through it. Cause there's that fine line there too of like, if you're super mentally burnt out, you should be taking a break. But if it's low motivation, it's actually good for you to push yourself. Yeah. So I guess where is the line, and like, how do you kind of discern between the two? And yeah. Doozy of a question.
Yeah. I'm still learning, you know?
Yeah.
I think to your point about like sometimes it's okay to like if you are burnt out, yeah, you should take a bit of a break. I think I've kind of had to like come to terms with that and not be too hard on myself if I am taking a break, whether it is burnout or just low motivation for a bit, because like you said, they're definitely related. And sometimes even if it's low motivation because of everything else in your life, you know, that's still valid. You do have a lot going on.
Yeah.
And so like, I think sometimes for me, even if I am making excuses, just being a little easier on myself, being like, okay, yeah, you're making excuses. Are they totally, you know, valid excuses? Would I feel better if I went and worked out right now? Probably. But that's okay, you know?
Yeah.
And like everything is a phase or a season or whatever. And like, especially I would say, you know, sophomore year was when I really started, even junior year. Yeah. Like sophomore and junior year is when I really started struggling to go to swim practice on like a regular basis. But I had a lot going on those 2 years, you know, like in terms of hard classes, leadership roles, other clubs and stuff. And so like, just kind of not, I think for me, it was like, okay, you're not swimming as much right now, but reminding myself that like, you will do it at some point.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of for me, that's like the first step for me, is just not letting myself kind of continue to fall into this slump of like, again, that black and white thinking of like, I haven't gone and swim in 3 months, I'm never going to swim again. Like,
yeah.
And being like, okay, you've had a busy 3 months. Let's try and find a time when you can go swim. And even just starting to realize that like, no, you can go practice on your own. Like, that's okay. You can do that. Has been, that was a major shift for me from thinking like, oh my God, I have to go to this 9 p.m. practice, being like, no, actually like something is better than nothing. Go swim at 10 a.m., do 2,000. That gets you in the water.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that was, that's kind of the first step for me. And then the next thing for getting me out of a slump, I would say, is like putting something on the schedule. And for me, especially like I would say with running, I need to wake up, roll out of bed and go before I wake up enough to think I don't want to do it. So like lowering kind of the barrier to entry for it. Like we said, it's kind of hard to do that with swim because you have to go to the pool and then there's like, you have to shower and wash your hair afterwards. And we're like, you get really sweaty running, but you can kind of fake it if you just put your hair up for the rest of the day. Like you can do a quick rinse off shower so you don't stink, but like you don't have to fully wash your hair and stuff right away.
Yeah.
And like you can save yourself some time with that. But like lowering the barrier to entry with some form of exercise of like, okay, I'm going to lay out all of my running clothes the night before. I'm going to roll out of bed, brush my teeth, put on clothes, go out the door. And like just going and doing it, it's going to suck. Or finding like a workout buddy who I can just kind of, especially in the gym for me, just finding, I hate going to the gym on campus. I don't know why. Any other like place, I can be like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I'll go to the gym and I'll do my workout. Can't do it on campus. So having like a workout buddy who comes up with the workout and I can just tag along behind them, perfect. And I have a couple of friends who I can do that with, so I'll just text them and be like, hey, you want to go to the gym? And usually people are like, yeah, of course. And then kind of the last step for me is, like I mentioned this earlier with, you know, running every day and then be like, oh my God, it's over. Not overcommitting and being more realistic about what I can actually do, I think is important, because I think when you're in a slump and you're like trying to build that motivation back up, it's really easy to see kind of crazy routines. And this applies to a lot of different stuff too, where you're like, okay, I'm going to turn my life around. I'm going to do this, this, and this. And like, you can see this with, you know, diets, with workouts, with
100%. Yeah.
even just general productivity. And maybe that works for some people. It does not work for me. And then the first day that I don't do it, I'm like, oh, well, I tried.
Over. Yeah.
But like, did you really try? Because you didn't actually try something that was going to work for you. You know? So I think this semester I've been a lot better about like, okay, I'm going to swim. I have these 2 days a week where I'm going to go swim. I'm not trying to swim every day. I'm just going to do 2 days a week. I'm going to have 3 days a week where I'm going to go run, and I do that with a buddy. So like, we have to talk to each other to get that done. So yeah, just because I tried to do one of those running streak things where it's like, because you see those people where it's like, I ran every day for a year. And I was like, I'm going to do that. We come back from, this was freshman year, came back from winter break. It was -3 degrees. And I was like, I'm going to go for a run. And I did it for 2 weeks. But then the semester like actually kicked off. And it's 3 degrees outside. I'm like, I'm not going for a run right now. I got chemistry homework to do.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think those are kind of, those are the 3 steps for me are like, be easy on yourself if you're taking a break. Just kind of keep in mind that it's a phase. Everything's just a phase, Mom. It'll end eventually, you know? And then like lowering the barrier for getting back out there and then setting like realistic expectations for myself.
Yeah.
How about you? I just talked for a long time about that. How about you?
Well, the first thing I wanted to say was I think it's really hard to be easy on yourself while not being too easy on yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Because like I'm the kind of person who like I honestly am not easy on myself, but the thing is like it's because I'm scared of becoming too easy on myself that I don't like, that I start saying it's okay for everything.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I'm not doing anything and I'm just like, oh, whatever, it's okay. So for me, that line is really hard to find of like being easy on myself, but also not being too easy on myself.
And I will say for that, that's also something that I really struggle with. And it's so hard, I think, because we're so used to being hard on yourself. It's also hard to not have a skewed perception about that and be like, oh my God, I'm being easy on myself about everything. But even then, like, maybe you're not, and maybe that's like, it's just hard to know.
Yeah. So that in itself is really tough, I think. Like, just kind of finding the balance there. 'Cause the thing with me is I'm pretty lazy, and like, if I have the choice, I'm the kind of person who can hit that slump of like finding excuses to not go. But the thing is, I also like need to mentally have that kind of push of like, you're going, I don't care, you're going. Because now, because I don't have that external push, except for like I pay to go to practice and like I see people there, besides that, which it's not really that much of an external push for me, if I'm going to be honest. It's a lot more of me pushing myself to go. Like, I got to be like, you're going, I don't care, you're going, you know? And so for me, like, I think getting out of low motivation, the first thing is getting that energy back of like my because usually low motivation, I'm not mentally there to push myself to go. But I think the first thing is kind of finding that me again. And the way to do that is usually, even if I just take one day off, I miss the sport. I usually end up missing it. And that usually sparks some sort of like fire or like joy, like just the joy of going. Because now especially too, and this is on top of it, is like I have teammates. Like, I mean, not in the same way I did when I was younger, but there are people who go to practice who they are like, oh, I'll see you on Wednesday.
Yeah.
I say, oh yeah, see you on Wednesday. So I'm going on Wednesday, you know, like things like that. And I do agree that having it in the schedule is really important. Or even like, and this is something I do, like kind of consciously I do this, is like when I leave for work, I put my swim bag in the car. So there's no excuse to come home. You know, I'm going straight to practice. Yeah. I brought my swim stuff, things like that, like very little things that you would think are like kind of mundane and not like very important, can just provide that little bit of extra push that gets you to the pool. And for me, getting me to the pool is enough. Usually when I get there, I'll get in. I'm not the kind of gal who will show up to the pool and then turn around and go home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I drove there. I'm staying. I'm going to practice. So for me, that's helped me a lot, is doing those like kind of small little things that you wouldn't think much of, but they just have that little bit of push to get you there. And I know when I've hit like a point where I'm like, I'm going to skip today. Like, usually it's after a long day at work or something where like, I'm just like, and most of the time, if I did swim, it probably would help me de-stress and all that. But like, I'm just like, okay, I'm not going today. Like, I need a break, or I'm going to be so late that like, it's just not worth it. So when there are days like that, I take the break. I've gotten better about taking the break. But usually taking the break also kind of encompasses getting ready to go the next day. Cause I'm like, okay, I've taken the break, right? Tomorrow you're going.
Yeah.
So it's just this, and I feel like I'm going in circles, but it's just the small things of like putting my swim bag in the car, like having swim in my calendar. When I leave work, routing in the pool, like routing the directions to the pool instead of routing the directions home. So I see the time it's taking to get to the pool. So small little things like that just honestly have this kind of motivating factor to them that don't seem that difficult, but they're just very simple little things that are like, okay, well, you brought your swim stuff, you're going to the pool, the map is routing you there. So swim, go to practice. So that's what's worked for me in terms of like low motivation. With burnout, it's hard because you just kind of have to take the break.
Yeah.
You just kind of have to take the break, and then you just have to wait, like I said, till you find that version of you again that's there and present and ready to go and kind of has that love back of the sport. Because, I mean, I can say for myself, at least, when I was burnt out, I did not have love for the sport. Like, I did, but I didn't, if that makes sense.
You wanted to love it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was at that spot, and so, like, I needed to wait and kind of take a break until I got back to that me where I was like, I love this sport, I want to go, and just, I think that those are the two big things of just having the energy and also wanting to go. So that's what I do.
Yeah. I think to that end with the burnout as well, like I kind of had the same thing where it's again, like I want to love the sport. And the only thing for the one time it got that really badly, the only thing that fixed it for me was kind of changing the environment. Like when I got back into swim, it was because it was my summer team. I wasn't going back to club and doing the exact same thing I'd been doing before. And that kind of let me like recharge a bit. And then even like in college now, I don't think I've fully experienced burnout, but even with the like lack of motivation with going to club practice in college, like I said, it was kind of that shift of, oh, I can go practice on my own. Or when we started practicing together, and that's kind of what helped me rebuild that motivation, was like shifting my target a little bit, where it's like, okay, this still gets me back there. It's not the exact same thing, but it still gets me back there.
Some people can do the like 9 to 10:30 evening practice, but it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
And finding what works for you is honestly the main thing. And I feel like we've said this countless times now, but like that's I guess the best thing we could say is like for some people some things work and for others it doesn't work. So 9 to 10:30 practices didn't really work for either one of us.
Nope.
And I mean, here we are, 5:30 to 7 practice. Yeah. Whenever you want practice.
Yeah. 10 to 11 10:30 to 11:45 on one day of the week, and then like 7 to 8:30 on another day.
I think we did a good job answering that question.
I think the only other thing I will add is something that you said reminded me of this when you were saying that like you've kind of gotten better at taking that one day off, but then preparing for the next day. I think something for me that has helped with like not falling down that slope of like low motivation leading to burnout is keeping track of kind of when I've like let myself take a break and being like, okay, you know, last week I was really tired and I didn't go, so I took a break. So this week I can't do that. You know, like I used my excuse last week. This week I have to go. And I think that also kind of helps me gauge again of how valid my excuse is, because if I'm like, I'm always going to kind of fight against that a little bit if I'm like have low motivation. But if it's just like I don't want to go, it's like, no, okay, you're going.
Yeah.
Versus if it's like okay, I know I said I would go, but like I'm sick. I have this big homework assignment that like I genuinely need to get done. You know, then it just helps me gauge better like where I'm at on that scale.
Yeah. And I will say I do a similar thing of like weekly I want to hit three practices a week at least. So then what I do is, let's say Monday I'm not motivated. I'll skip Monday. Tuesday I'm not motivated. I skip Tuesday. Well, too bad. I need to hit 3. So then that means that, you know, I'm going to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You know what I mean? Like having kind of that like minimum amount too helps, because it's like you can take the break when you need to, but also know that you have to hit this many this week. Yeah. I mean, granted, there are always special cases, because
life happens.
You get sick, you know, if you get sick, things happen. It's like, I mean, I did say last episode that I am insane and I push through sickness, but like, you know,
that's not advice.
The normal thing to do is to not do that. Okay.
Speaking of kind of what we talked about last time with Kyle, I pushed myself. I went to go swim on Tuesday this week, but I got in and my shoulder was really hurting because I'd done push-ups and chin-ups the day before.
Okay. And
so I got to like 1,000. I was like, okay, you know what? I showed up. It's not feeling better after warm-ups. So I took it easy. I think I got to like 1,400 of actually swimming, and then I just did 1,600 of kick, or not 1,600, 600 of kick. So I hit 2,000, and I was like, you know what? I showed up, but then I also was like, yeah, this actually doesn't feel good today.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Be proud of that. That's good.
I like almost texted you and Kyle, and then I was like, they're at work. It's fine. They don't need to hear about this.
No, I mean, I'd have been excited. I'm not, you know.
Hey guys, I did an easy workout today. Aren't you proud of me?
I hit some great yardage on Monday. You know, I'll take my flowers.
Yeah.
4,600.
I'm appreciating that you post the workout that you did too. I haven't done any of them yet,
but I've been trying to be better about posting the actual sets, at least the main set. Because like the warm up and stuff, you can kind of mess around with. But I'm like, the main set probably is pretty good if I just put it up there. Look, you know what's really motivating is having a 75-year-old guy in your lane doing the set. You look like just a lazy. You just look so lazy if you are like, I'm out, and you let this 75-year-old guy who's in your lane to finish the set without you. Like, that is, I think, the epitome of embarrassment. So I think, like, you know, I got humbled really quickly because there was a lot of people in the lane who are older than me, and I'm like, I gotta finish the practice. I cannot just leave midway and be like, 12,200s, I'm out. When, you know, the 75-year-old guy in my lane finishes the whole 5,000 yard practice, and he comes to practice 5 days a week. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Okay. I'm not about to get humbled today. Like, come on. So that's also motivating in a way. But yeah. Shout out Rick. We love you. I know you don't know this podcast exists, but we love you. If you do ever hear this, yeah, you're cool.
We've kind of already we've touched on this kind of throughout, I think, with like the different things that we do. But just to wrap up today, what would you say are like, how do you prevent burnout? What advice would you give for preventing burnout?
This might sound a little like cliche, but I guess I'd say like my biggest thing for burnout, and I think it's something that people like lose as they keep doing what they're doing is just keep the love of the sport. Like, keep the why. You know, I think we talked about this in like episode 1 or 2 of like why we do it still and why we like it. Like, make sure the why is still holds up. You know, like if you at a certain point realize like your why that you initially had, or that your why has become, you know, something that or there isn't even a why. You're just going to go. There's not like a why behind it. That, I think, is kind of a sign like, hey, you're getting somewhere maybe you don't want to be. Yeah. You know, like, because the why, I think, is so important and something that you need to hold on to. Now, granted, your why can change. It can shift. So I didn't want to say that, like, if your why changes, you're in a bad spot. Yeah. But it's more so that if the why kind of slips from your mind and you're doing things, but the why isn't really there, that's a problem. And I think the biggest way to prevent burnout, besides the obvious things of like not pushing yourself too hard, taking breaks when you're injured, when you're sick, things like that, besides like those kinds of things, is to make sure you keep that why truthful, like authentic, and just there. Like you should have that why. You know, it's super important. But what would you say?
I think I definitely agree with that. I think my piece of advice would be to be adaptable. You know, like there's some, I think it's Einstein quote about insanity, you know, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. But like if you are doing something that is like leading you to burnout, say like, again, going to practice every day, if you don't have your why anymore and you're just going, let's figure out something else that does make you enjoy the sport again, brings you back to that.
Right.
And like, you know, maybe if you have reached that point, maybe that is taking a break. But it may also just be like, okay, let me adjust even if and being adaptable can look like a lot of different things. If it's, you know, adjusting your expectations for yourself, because maybe that's like really demotivating you. If you are like genuinely trying your best and you can't live up to the expectations, you know, there's something to be said for having lofty goals, but at a certain point it's demotivating. Like you need to give yourself little wins and stuff, you know?
100%.
So like whether it be adjusting your goals or like adjusting your workouts. I know some people who like, this is something you see a lot online where it's like last month I've seen mostly people like kind of making fun of these people where they're like, I'm so into Pilates now. And then a month later they're like, I'm so into lifting. And like, I think that's not great. You probably should try and find like a more consistent thing. But if you have to adjust and that is what keeps you working out, go for it.
Yeah.
You know, or like finding a different split of like running and strength training that works for you. Yeah. Or, again, I've said this like 3 times now, but changing the practice that you go to if something else works for you, but just being able to kind of be like, recognize that something's not working and being like, okay, what are realistic changes I can make so that I can keep doing this?
Yeah.
Instead of just like continuing down that same path where like clearly something isn't working.
And I think something too is, and we wrote this down on the sheet, which is why I want to just touch on it. But something that we did also want to touch on is to keep things fun. Because we did say, or like we did start this sport and keep doing it because at some point it like you said gives us a return. There's some sort of output. You either, you know, you have fun with it, you like the people you've met, you like your coaches, you know, you like the environment. Something about it, you know, was giving you some sort of like happiness, joy, or anything, just fun, right? Once you get older, that shouldn't change. Yeah. Like you should still be getting some sort of joy or happiness or even just having fun with it. And so sometimes, like in the case of swim, that could mean just instead of doing a practice, going to the pool and just messing around, you know, doing dolphin dives. I don't know. Those are fun. Bobs when it's like when the pool is like really, really deep. You know what I'm talking? Like deep water bobs. Those are fun too.
I kind of want to bring my fins next week when I practice. And just like mess around with that.
Using fins, using a snorkel, like things like that are just like maybe they're, you know, to some people they're nostalgic, but also, you know, they just bring you back to just that fun feeling of, you know, you're swimming for fun at the end of the day. Yes, it's a workout. Yes, you know, it's, you know, you get other benefits out of it, but keep things fun. Things shouldn't become fully serious all the time, you know?
Yeah.
So I think like that's something too, to never lose sight of that. So if things start to become not fun anymore, like you said, adapt, find something new, or even just to find a way to make it fun again.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good lesson.
Yeah. And even like a hard workout, maybe it sucks in the moment, but if it's not bringing you joy afterwards of like, hey, I accomplished that, that can also be kind of a sign of like, maybe let's reassess a little bit.
Hard workouts can be fun too.
Yeah.
Like, you might be suffering, but you're suffering with your teammates and you're trauma bonding, and it's great. You know?
You're going to suffer, but you're going to be happy about it.
Exactly. That was actually a really positive note to end it on.
I'm glad we ended on.
We started saying it was a downer, but then, you know, we actually came up to the positive already here.
Wow. We went through the path of burnout during this episode ourselves.
We didn't though.
Okay, well, that you made the same hand motion.
Yeah,
so
I mean, we not. Okay.
I think it counts.
I would like to claim though that this was not burnout, and this is not anything like what burnout actually is. Okay, I just want to put that out there. So I shall outro.
I think
you
so.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm so ready. I'm so ready to sit here and look pretty while you talk.
Well, that's what I do during the intro.
Hey, we both do that the whole episode. Look at us.
Well, thank you guys all for listening and watching. Subscribe, like the video on YouTube, like the video on Spotify. Follow us on Instagram at TakeYourMarkPod. You can find us on YouTube too. The link will be on our Instagram, but also Take Your Mark on YouTube. And I think I have covered everything. Leave us a comment. You can DM us too. You know, feel free to interact with us. You know, we want to interact with all of you. Feel free. I have hit everything, I believe. So, with that being said, we will see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, for the season finale.
Yeah.
I don't think we're actually doing anything special for it, are we?
I mean,
we could.
We could.
We got 2 weeks to figure that out.
Yeah. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye.